So just a few reminders about what we talked about last week. This is called the dashboard, and this is the thing that everybody gets sees when you first log into TouchStone. Just making sure my screen works. Okay. The dashboard is where you go to access processes, or where employees go to access processes. So right here in the control panel screen, if you've been assigned a control panel, you see it. And if the employee wants to look at the processes that they're responsible for, either to remind themselves of how to do it, or during new employee training, or when a manager tells them to, they can go here to the dashboard and select that process, and then they see all the content in it. I can also hit collapse, so it looks a little cleaner, and then I can go right to a work plan or right to a checklist. So the dashboard is where people go to access their processes. And I like to point this out every time, because once you get something documented, it's important to make sure your employees know how to access it in TouchStone. They know where to go to find it. They have access to TouchStone to use it and to view it and to see it. If you don't take that step, then in a way your processes just sit out there and nobody uses them. So really taking this first step of making sure everyone knows how to access their processes in TouchStone is key. Now, when you give them access to TouchStone, you can give them restricted access, so they can only read what they've been given access to. So remember that. You're not giving them access to everything. You're not allowing them to do anything in TouchStone unless you choose to. But when you do give them that access, even read-only access, they can go to their control panel and view what's there. Also, the dashboard is all mobile compliant. It shows up all formatted on a phone or on a mobile device. So that's another benefit, even if they're not even in the office or they're driving around in their car, or whatever the situation is. If they need to go to a process, either by a manager telling them they need to, or because they forgot what to do, they can do that all on their phones. Last week, we talked about the 4 key functions specifically. I'm just going to go there. Go back here. So what we discussed in the 4 functions is taking the first step in TouchStone and listing out all of your 4 processes and your 4 key functions. So list them all out, either by going to the library and downloading things you want from the process library, or going here and putting add new process and then listing the processes. Once you've listed out all your processes, then come and build your organization chart. So these are the first 2 steps that I would recommend. 1, list out your 4 key functions, and then 2, build your organization chart. Now, if you're an existing user, you've had your TouchStone account for a long time, and you did work at one point or another on building your 4 functions, but maybe that was months ago and you really aren't sure if it's done yet or if it's correct, what I would suggest that you do is go 1 function at a time, just like you were approaching it brand new. Click that function, start with the first process, look at it, ask yourself, is this something, did somebody start to work on this? Is the documentation correct? Is this still a process that we feel committed to using and documenting within the next year, say? Is this something we do at all anymore? If the answer is yes, it's still a good process, then leave it. If the answer is no, then delete it. Just drag it here to this delete. You don't want to have your 4 functions cluttered up with processes that you're not committed to documenting and using. It just makes it more confusing. It just makes more there than needs to be. If you've downloaded a bunch of library processes, like these are all library processes, and give those a second glance and do the same thing. Ask yourself, is this something that I'm committed to documenting and using right now? If the answer is no, delete it, and it'll put it back in the library. You can always go back and get it later. So someone asked a question about the add from process library. You have to be an administrator to see the add from process library, I'm pretty sure. That's because if you're a regular user, then you only have access to the processes that are on your job description. So let me go up here to account administration and show you that. Administrators, like I am right here, or the key account holders, are always designated with this green key or this yellow key. So that means an administrator has access to everything and can do anything and everything inside of TouchStone. If someone is designated with a blue key, they're a user. So if I click on Jack here, you can see up here under user type that he's a user. Now, even if someone is an administrator or a regular user, if you change your mind about that, you can always change it right here and then hit save at the bottom. But Jack here has been set up as a user. So if I go here to user access, we're going to see that he has read-only access to the bookkeeper position, and he has edit access to receptionist, and he has create access to IT. And I just did this for example's sake so you can see the different levels of access. So what that means is when Jack logs in, everything's going to be grayed out and TouchStone except for these three positions on the org chart. And when he clicks on these three positions, he'll be able to see the processes on those job descriptions. Now, in this example, when he's a create user in IT, he can add processes to that job description, but he can't go to the 4 key functions and add new processes to the 4 key functions or download from the library. All he can do is go to his position on the org chart, so it would be this one that's not grayed out, and he can go add new process. So when you give someone restricted access, it's giving them access to only the positions you decide, and then the level of access within that dictates what he can do with this position. Okay, so this is the organization chart, and first I'm just going to talk about technically how to use the chart. And then we'll discuss, strategically what a good methodology for building it is. So right here at the top of the screen, if you want to add a position, it's just this little plus sign. So I hit the plus sign, and I put in the name of the position. This should always be a position title. It shouldn't be somebody's name. It shouldn't be a person's name. So right here, then I would choose the position I want this box to go under. So that's what's happening. I'm choosing the manager of this position. So let's choose this one and then hit save. So now the box is added underneath the position I chose in the dropdown. Once a box is added, if you put it in the wrong department or you put it in under the wrong person, it's just drag and drop. So I'm just holding my left mouse click down, and then I'm moving the position around, and I put it inside of the position I want it to go under. And it turns green like that, and then I let go. You can also delete positions from the chart, which is this little X sign. So when I hit the X and then I hit the drop down, I'm going to see all the positions that are available to delete. So what that means is if I can't see a position available to delete that has boxes underneath it. Because if I deleted the manager of marketing and sales, for example, TouchStone doesn't know where these other boxes go. So if you want to delete a position that has boxes underneath it, then you need to move those boxes away to a different position, and then it will be available to delete. So I'm going to choose the box to delete and hit delete, and now that box is gone. Remember, if you delete a position, it's going to delete that job description too. So if I click back on this position, this job description has been built. You can see all these processes are linked to it. If I delete this position, then this job description is going to be gone. Now, the processes aren't gone because these processes are just linked to this position. If I select this process, you can see from the breadcrumb trail here that this process is in guiding the business and employee management. And it's been linked to the manager of marketing and sales job description. I can even see which job descriptions it's been linked to by clicking that toolbar item, link to job description. You can see it here. So even if I delete this job description, the process isn't gone. The only way to delete the process is to go to the 4 key functions and delete it from there. Okay. Printing the org chart. So printing using our print function is not great at the moment because it only allows you to print it in sections. So I'm pulling in the white area here and it's moving it around. So I could go here and then print half of it. Now I show this to people just because we have this print button and that's what it does. The best way to print an org chart is to use some kind of snipping tool. So I use this tool here called Jing, and this is what it looks like. It's made by Smith Tech. It's a free tool that you can download from the internet. So Jing's pretty cool because it has a lot of great features in it for taking screenshots. It also does screen capture recording. So you can be speaking into your computer and you take the view screen as your whole computer screen, and then you're talking and clicking, and it's recording your voice and your screen movements. And then you can upload that to the video section inside of a process, which is pretty cool. You can also use, whatever other screen capture tool you have, like the snipping tool. This is always inside of the Windows operating system, this tool. Jing is far better than this, but if this is all you have and you don't want to download Jing, you can use that. And I know that Macs also have their own version of that. So I would take a picture of the screen, of the chart. I messed it up. Let me try again. So with Jing, you put the crosshairs in the corner where you want to start the image, and then I drag it across here. So that's the chart, and then I capture the image, and so here's the organization chart. From here, I can print it. Now, at this point forward, everything has to do with your printer settings. So you have to set it to print on legal size or whatever your printer's able to do. But it is limited by the abilities of your own printer at this point. With Jing, just to show you, I don't know that you do this on an org chart, but you can do these little arrows pointing to things. You can put in text, like 2019. You can change the color of the circles and of the arrows right here with this little color wheel. You can highlight things by going like that. So Jing's got some pretty cool features. I think it's way better than a snipping tool, and I think it's better than most things I've ever seen. And when you're doing your documentation, you're going to be doing a lot of screenshots, or you should, for the processes that would benefit from those. So remember, to use a good tool that a snipping tool that will work well. But in this example, this is a way to print your org chart, and it's far superior than going to our print org chart function and doing it this way. You can also put the tree in simple view, which is this toolbar item right here, which makes it into an outline. So some people who have really long charts, when I'm in their account, rather than dragging the org chart to see what I want to see, I always put it in simple view because it makes it easier for me anyway, because I'm more of a linear thinker. It makes it easier for me to find things. Now, people who are more visual probably like this better. But again, when you have a big org chart, it becomes hard to see the whole chart because I've got to drag it over. So I'm just holding my mouse click down in the white space here, and I'm dragging the chart back and forth and up and down. So if this was a much larger chart, to see this department, I may have to drag all the way over to see it. You can also, inside of Firefox and also Chrome, you can do like a control negative, and it shrinks it, or a control plus, and it makes it bigger. So that all has to do with your browser, but you can do that as well to make anything in TouchStone look bigger or smaller. If I want to edit a title of a position that already exists on the chart, the editing of that happens on the job description. So if I click here, Then I go to this position title right above, and I select it. This is how I edit it. So if you have existing boxes on your chart that you want to change the title of the position, or you make a typo, or you just decide to change it altogether, then just click the position and then click the title and it opens. 9 times out of 10, when you want to edit something in TouchStone, you just click it and it will open for you to edit. So let's go back now. So adding positions here, deleting them here, editing the titles by selecting the box and then editing it on the job description page. The functionality of the chart is pretty straightforward. A couple other techniques with the chart. If you have people who fill the same role, but there are more than one, and you want to show that on the chart, you can do that by putting these little numbers in like I have here. So if I have 3 senior technicians and 5 lead technicians and 6 apprentice technicians, I don't need 6 boxes that all say apprentice technician, or I don't need 5 boxes that all say lead tech. Just have one and then put the number in there. So the reason you want to do that is it makes your chart smaller, which makes it easier to manage. And if you create multiple boxes with the same title, they just become redundant. So combine them into one, and then if you want to show the number of people you have there, you can do that by putting the number in. Now, I've seen in some people's charts where they want to put the name of the person who fills that box right here in the chart. Now, you can do that, but it just makes the boxes longer and more, it looks a bit cluttered to me. That's a personal preference. If you want to put people's names in, you certainly can do that. The way TouchStone knows who's in what box is here in Account Administration. So here, I set up all the employees, and then I assign them the position. So if I have 5 senior technicians, I would give them each a control panel for that position. So Mike, Bill, Bob, Mary, they're all senior technicians, and they would all have a control panel for that position. Here's an example of what that looks like. So here, under Bookkeeper, there's Mike's name. He's been assigned that position. So in a sense, his name is in that box. And if I had 5 bookkeepers, I would see all of their names here listed under Bookkeeper. All right, let's go back. So I want to talk about some methodology for creating a good organization strategy. And then I'm going to end with how to use your organization chart. Everything in TouchStone should be used. It's such a valuable tool, and the things that you create in it make your business better, but you have to use them in order for that, to happen. So let's first talk about good organization strategy. So first thing is you want to think of departments, your business as a set of departments. The organization chart that comes inside of TouchStone has departments built in it already, the template, so you can mirror those departments or you can create your own. So what I mean by a department is an area where similar results happen. So this is the sales and marketing department. This is where all of the leads are generated and where they're converted into customers or clients. Then you've got your operations department or your service delivery. It's client fulfillment. It's where your product or service is delivered. Once things are sold over here, that's the result. They get delivered over here and they're fulfilled on. Then some type of admin, finance, office department. So in this department, this is where administrative things happen, the computer technology, finance, human resources. It's like the support department for the rest of the company. So these are the 3 key departments generally inside of most businesses. You could have some variation of this, but those are the results that every business needs to achieve. Now, in some businesses, it's a sales organization. So everything, the operations, they don't necessarily have a product or service that they're delivering, but they're just selling. So in that example, then your operations is your sales. But that's pretty rare. There's not a whole lot of industries like that. For the most part, these three functions are what exists for most businesses. Think about your managerial presence within your organization chart. So the managers are usually this row is where it starts under president. Each department should have a manager, someone who oversees the results of that department. You can even have more levels than that, like here, where I'm showing a senior position and a lead and an apprentice. So think about the managerial functions within your business and create levels or layers so that you can see, who oversees, who's accountable, who's responsible for developing that department. So starting at the top here, this is called the board of directors. This could be called owners. It could be called chairman of the board, whatever you want it to be. Even if you don't have board meetings, because maybe your company's smaller and you haven't really deemed that as important, this is still a good box to keep. This is the entrepreneurs. These are the owners of the business. These are the people who care about how much the business is worth. They don't necessarily care about who's earning what and what paycheck they're going to get. They care about the net return, the net profit that the business gives back to them as shareholders. They care about the value of the business when they choose to sell it. So it's a different mindset. And those of you who wear a lot of hats, this is an important mindset to have. This down here is your asset. This is your asset that should be earning dividends. This is your ATM machine. So that mentality helps you to think about how to develop the business so that it generates a net profit, not a paycheck for you, but a net profit. Underneath this, the entrepreneur's box is the president. So this person oversees the runnings of the entire company. So generally they receive direction from the board. This is what we want you to do. This is how we want you to do it. This is what we want to achieve. And then this person takes that strategy and spreads it out throughout the company, decides on what tactics needs to happen in order for the vision to be achieved. Underneath president, you then generally would have key managers over every department. So why that's important is this position here in the manager of marketing and sales oversees the implementation of the tactics that come from the president. So when you're building your chart, it's important to think into the future. So if you're saying to yourself, I don't have enough money to pay all these managers, well, think about it in the future. Think about where your business needs to go, where you're going to grow to, and then build the chart as a picture of the future. What might be happening in the current situation is people are filling more than one box on the chart. So you might be the owner, the president, the manager here, maybe even a salesperson. That would be a lot to deal with, but some growing businesses are in that situation. So think about it that way. Think about building the organization chart for the future. You can even put little tentative hire dates like I have here. So you want to hire an operations manager by Q4 2019. That is a reminder of where your business is going. And you may be filling this role and this role right now, but your plan is by Q4 to be out of that box. So starting, I'm just going to talk a little bit about each department and what is key to think about when you're developing a structure for it. So here on the sales and marketing side, there are two key things that happen here. Leads get generated, these two positions, and then sales get made. So ideally, leads get generated through proactive lead generation processes. Those qualified leads, those processes are then funneled to salespeople who convert them at a certain rate. So think about your version of that. What positions do you need to be generating leads? Do you need an internet marketing person? Do you need a marketing assistant? Do you need lead generation people that would be implementing processes? Nowadays, there's so much great automation that businesses can benefit from on the internet, where it makes your lead generation processes, if they're done correctly, just a machine that generates these leads. When you're thinking of your future business, so say you want to double sales in the next 2 years, think about how many leads you're going to need in order to double your sales. A lot of businesses get a start by word of mouth and referral. That's how the business begins. But you can't rely on that to scale. You can't have controlled growth by word of mouth and referral. Some of you may be overwhelmed by word of mouth and referral, but to really have control of your growth, you need to be able to control that word of mouth and referral and then have more proactive advertising methods. So then all those leads get funneled on to salespeople who then convert those leads at a certain rate, hopefully. It's called a conversion rate. So if you take a qualified lead, you put it into your sales process, you have qualified salespeople delivering that sales process, the lead should convert at a certain rate. That's when you know you've got a really dialed in sales process. So if we knew the rate or percentage that leads should convert, then we would know how many leads we need, how many of those leads go into the sales process, and how many sales are produced from those leads. So that's a great magic number to know. It's not going to be perfect every time, but if you can get your arms around that, then you are understanding what it takes to really, through this department, to grow the business, to control the sales. So think about your sales processes and what positions need to be delivering those. Like in this example, we have leads generated here, and then they're funneled to this position that sets the appointment, qualifies the lead maybe, intakes the lead, and then sets appointments for these people. That's an effective way to think about it because your salespeople, they tend to be the most expensive people within this department. If they're having to spend their time generating leads here and then qualifying them and setting their own appointments, and their show-up rate for appointments is terrible because they're so overwhelmed by all these other things, they're less efficient. Your conversion rate suffers because of that. So financially, it might make better sense to have an appointment setter who can funnel the leads and get really good appointments in front of these people. This is another approach, having levels. So here's sales assistant. So we hire salespeople into this box, and maybe they do some appointment setting first while they're learning how to be a good salesperson. They are mentored by these people, and they watch and follow. Maybe they do some of the smaller sales, over-the-counter or one-off sales, easier sales, and then they grow up to be into this position. So this is a good way to kind of understand how to make your employees the most efficient as possible. If they can learn in this box and then move to this box, then it's, by the time they get here, they should be converting. So let's talk about operations next. So if all the sales are coming in over here, leads are being generated, leads are being converted, all those leads then get piled onto this department. So the leads are coming in, the sales are coming in this department, the operations, the service department, whatever your version of this is, has to deliver what was promised over here. So one of the biggest things in an operational department is being able to construct it in a way where it can also scale up and scale down depending on the amount of sales that are coming in. The juggling act between sales and marketing and operations is always there for a growing business. What I mean is if you don't have enough leads over here, but you've got all of these people sitting around waiting for work, well, then that's a problem. If you have lots of leads coming in, a lot of sales coming in over here, and then you don't have enough trained people over here, well, that's an even bigger problem. And it's a bigger problem because your reputation's on the line and your profitability is on the line. Because to the degree that these people are messing up, they're not trained, they're not efficient, they're making mistakes, they're using too many materials, whatever it is, that is a cost of goods sold. When somebody sells something over here and they sell it for 5 hours worth of time, just to make it simple, if it takes this guy 10 hours to do it because he's made so many mistakes, well, that's a cost of goods sold. That varies with sales. So the more situations you sell like that and the more they mess up over here, the more it's going to cost you. And there isn't anything you can do about that. So the key here is to have an efficient, effective operations department. So here's a few techniques for that. This one with levels, just like over here. So this is the apprentice level. This is where we hire people, and then we move them up to here. They're at the mid-level or the lead level, and then we move them up to here where they're at the senior level. If somebody has sold something over here for 5 hours worth of time and all the profits built into that, this person here must be delivering it for 5 hours. They must. That's why they're a senior technician. These people down here might be doing it in 6 because they haven't quite learned it yet. These people down here, if they're given that work, it may take them twice as long. So the reason I'm pointing it out this way is you have to plan for training. If I put someone in here, they're not as efficient as the person over here, and I have to know that and plan for that. It's always the surprises which hurt you. It's when you look at your P&L and you're like, we had the best sales month ever, but we have no profit. Well, 9 times out of 10, it's because there's inefficiencies. People are spending more time, wasting more products, and what is being estimated is not what's being delivered. So knowing when and where you need to hire and what it's going to take, how much time it's going to take to train someone from here to here can be really a great position to be in for your operations department. In a growing business, you have to be prepared for growing your own talent from within. That means I have to expect that I'm going to hire people here and it's going to take them 6 months to get here. And I could even make it shorter because I have such fabulous training processes. You have to plan for that. The issue that happens with a lot of small business owners is you just assume that you can hire people here and they're going to be doing it for 5 hours every time. Well, sometimes you get lucky, which I think further propels this myth, and you do find someone. It's really rare, and it's few and far between. And if you're hearing yourself say, well, I just can't find good people, and there's no good employees out there, and no one can do it like I do it, or no one does it like Mike does it, it's because you don't have a training path for people. You don't expect that you can hire them down here. You don't plan for the fact that you need to and then train them up to here. There's another key thing within an operations or service department that is very useful, and it's productivity tracking. So this can be as simple as time cards. So you want to know how your people are spending their time so that you can see how your processes are working. So in some industries, you can buy productivity or production management software that can do this kind of tracking. If you don't have the luxury of that, then it's simple timesheets. So this guy turns in a timesheet every day showing you what he did. And now you know it took him 10 hours. This guy turns this timesheet in every day, every week, and you know it took him 5 hours. Well, you're going to see all this funnel down to your balance sheet and your profit and loss at some point, but by that point, it's too late. So this productivity tracking is making sure that you know all the time what people are doing and how long it's taking them to do it, so that you can kind of track their efficiency. Having a good customer service presence inside of your operations. Sometimes I see this over in sales and marketing, but most of the time it's here. And I point out this position because making sure your customers is happy is the most important thing that you do. Now, they're not always going to be right, and there may be problems that they caused, but for the most part, making sure people are heard is the whole benefit of a service person, a customer service person. So this person's here to handle problems. This person's here to facilitate communication between sales and marketing and operations sometimes. This person's here to call every single customer up after their work is done and say, how was it? How did it go? Did we do a good job? Will you give us a Google review? Will you give us a referral? How can I make it better? This is key to making sure that you keep your existing customers happy, because statistics show it costs you, I think, 4 times as much to get a new customer than it does just to keep a good one. And if you think about it, it's true. If I just keep a good customer happy, it's way easier than doing all of this, right? Generating the leads, setting the appointments, selling the lead. That costs money. Over here, I just want to say a few minutes about things about this department, the admin finance department. Think about what a good overhead for your department is. What is, first of all, in terms of expense, what is something that makes sense? So if sales come in, your cost of goods sold is a certain rate, your fixed costs are a certain amount, which then yields a net profit or not. Think about the fixed costs. What percentage of that should be spent on this overhead department? Now, think about the key things that this department does also. So bookkeeping, number 1, finance, counting the money. Money comes in, money goes out. If you don't know what's coming in, what's going out in a timely way, then these people don't have any chance of doing a good job. None of them do. If the bookkeeping isn't happening on time, every time correctly, any productivity tracking you do, time tracking, conversion rates, lead generation expenses, no one's going to know any of that. All that has to be timely. So having your CRM up to date and running using this resource here, IT, having a bookkeeper or a finance person putting that information in accurately makes all the difference in you being able to gauge what your business is doing and how it's doing. Have good office support. So reception, administrative assistants, these are people who are emailing, filing, following up, answering the phone. To the degree that these people are doing all of that is to the same degree that they're not selling things and delivering things. So these positions sometimes get a bad rap because they are overhead, but by having good processes for how they support the rest of the company, makes everybody more efficient. I had this a user I was talking to the other day, and we were talking about good HR processes and how, on the dashboard in the public folder, you can put, forms and documents and things that employees need to access and use right away. And this person was saying, well, they should be responsible for that on their own. Well, what you don't realize is 9 times out of 10, people are at work and they're like, how do I request a time off? What happened in the employee handbook here? How do I do this? Well, that's your time that's being wasted. Why would you want them to have to struggle to find things? Why not make it super easy? HR also happens in this department. Good recruiting and hiring. I heard a statistic a while ago on the cost of a bad hire. I think there's actually a video on it in our resource center. It's like double the salary of that position or something. So if you hire someone in for $60,000 a year, if they're a bad hire, it's going to cost you twice that much. So this starts with good recruiting and hiring, good interviewing. So think about your organization. Think about the structure of it. Think about uniformity of work and departments. So like results that happen within each department. Think about your overhead. What a good percentage of that, of your overall budget should be spent on that. How, in your type of industry and business, how more efficient can you make the rest of the company by having good procedures and processes here and positions to run those. Think about your levels, how you're going to grow your own talent from within, how you're going to get them from entry level up to senior. And your version of this may be 5 positions long, and it may be 2. But I think for key positions in any business, there's an entry level and then there's the senior level at least. Unless you're in the kind of industry where you hire professionals that come with, fancy degrees that you can count on, and then you may be able to plug the person right in. But in most situations, you're taking someone with a certain amount of talent and you're teaching them your own processes to make them better. So once you've built your organization chart, then you need to use it. So that's key. So how you use it is you look at this picture of the future, and then you start putting people's names in boxes for what they're doing now. So you look at your employees and you say, okay, clearly these two people are salespeople. They've been with me 10 years. Then this person's the manager, marketing and sales. So start plugging people's names in the boxes. Think about if people fill multiple boxes, multiple roles. Like maybe you've got an office manager or manager admin and finance, but this person temporarily is also the bookkeeper, or maybe also the receptionist. Or you've got a person that you hired to be a salesperson, but they were also really good at customer service, so they're customer service and sales. So even though you hire a person and they end up doing multiple things, now's the time to use the organization chart and start putting their name into the box for what they're doing. And a lot of growing businesses, this is just a phenomenon that exists in all of small business. What usually happens is you start to get overwhelmed. You're thinking, all the sales are coming in, and I can't answer the phone, and I don't have enough here. Let's hire this person. And so you hire that person, and they're filling in wherever they can. And they're like, oh, I'm the warehouse lead, but then also I'm doing some sales, and then I'm also answering the phone. So that person has kind of morphed into doing other work because they were good at that or asked to do it. But the reality of it is when they go to work every day, they're in chaos. They're being pulled to do sales. The warehouse is a mess. Then they also have to deal with computers being down, and then the customers are calling, and you've got a person that is run ragged because they're spanning the organization chart. It's a very overwhelming situation to be in as an employee. It feels really unappreciated because you can't succeed at one thing because you're pulled in so many different directions. It's very stressful because this constant feeling of not finishing things is always present. It's not multitasking. It's being constantly interrupted and pulled in different directions. So you can do that employee a favor by saying, okay, look, here's the organization structure I've created. You're actually this box, and you're this box, and you're this box right now. In the future, we want you just to be in this box. So over time, we're going to work on increasing sales, whatever you need to do to get the person out of this box and out of this box. The dates can help too, because you can think, okay, by Q4 2019, this person is just going to be the service manager. Then we're going to hire another lead salesperson, and they're not going to do sales anymore. And then we're going to hire a receptionist, and they're not going to answer the phone anymore. That will help the employee kind of compartmentalize what they're doing, first of all, and what positions they really fill. And then it's also going to help with you changing that as you go forward. One thing I would say that is something to look at right away when you lay over your current employees with your future chart. Try not to have, under any circumstances, two people's name in one box. So don't have two managers of marketing and sales. Don't have two bookkeepers. So how this happens is, or even two presidents. How this happens is one person can't quite do that work fully, and so then you put another person on doing it. Or in this situation where there's two people being the manager, you had a really great salesperson and you were overwhelmed by being in this box that you said, hey, why don't you be the manager? But they never really learned how to do it, and they were not that great at it. And so now these people don't even know who their manager is because both of you are trying to do it. It's like if one person isn't accountable, nobody's accountable. Receptionist, the phone just ringing off the hook, and who's supposed to answer it? Who's responsible for that? That's a really straightforward example, but it exists in much more complicated ways when you have two people doing work of the same position when there should only be one. If you have a situation where you have promoted someone beyond their capabilities, just because you were, in such desperate need of getting some help, then use the organization chart as an opportunity to readjust that and say to the person, listen, I know you're overwhelmed trying to be this. Let's move you back down to sales lead. I'm going to work on the processes for this, and then I'm going to open that position back up again. Another thing you can do with your organization chart to use it more fully, to implement it, is to put it into your financial plan or your budget. So what I mean by that is, if this is a future chart, and let's say you're going to achieve this by the year 2020, and you know that your business is going to have to be producing 10 million in sales to fill all these boxes by 2020, well, you've need to have a financial plan that shows how you get from today to 2020. And the organization chart can really help with the dynamics of hiring. So there's a process in the process library. It's in running the business, and it's simply called budgeting, budget creation right here. So if you go add from process library to the general process library, and you go down to the B section, it's right here. It's already in my account. That's why it's grayed out, but that's where you can find it. There isn't anything magical about this library process. You could go onto the internet and find budget templates. But there's a lot of different uploaded files in here, which are versions of a budget template. So I'm just going to show you one. In your accounting systems, you probably have budgeting tools maybe that you can use. So here's this one. This is simple. It's got revenues here, variable costs, which gives you your contribution margin or cost of goods sold, same thing, fixed costs, all the way down to net profit. So when you're looking at your organization chart, this is what I would do. I would start with the end in mind, and I would probably change these to quarters. So this would be Q1, and this could be Q2. So do it every 3 months to start with, if this is a new thing for you. I think when people tried to get too detailed with financial plans is when it gets super complicated. So this could be 2019. So this would be the totals. So you can start with the end in mind. So say by the end of 2019, what should our sales be? And then plug that number in. Then go down to the contribution of the total variable costs and put that in. So what percentage of sales can you spend on your operations? So there's a percentage. And if you do estimating, this will be a little bit more easy for you. But even service businesses can do this. So you put in all those expenses and you get your gross profit. Then look at your fixed expenses. So for the people who work hourly, then they go into variable costs. So these people down here. The people who have salaries, well, they go into fixed costs. So if I'm going to hire this operations manager by Q4 2019, then right here in my fixed costs at the end of that year, I need to have their salary right here. Commissions, if you pay sales commissions, those are variable. So think about what positions on the org chart are going to fit here in the variable cost section and what are going to be fixed costs. This whole department here is typically a fixed cost. So this is how the org chart can help with the financial plan, or the financial plan can help with the org chart, depending on how you look at it. So think about the sales and then plug in all of the salaries or the hourly wages for this whole organization chart, every box. And then at the end, in this 2019 column, you've got all those people in, and then this is the magic number down here. If you add in all those salaries, what will your net profit be? And then you can start treating it like an algebra expression. If your net profit is not enough, then your sales need to be more, or your cost of goods need to be less, or you need to raise your prices. That's another way to make this number change. So think about in lowering your variable costs, what's necessary there? How can you get your material costs down? How can you get the service delivery to be more efficient? So you start asking all these questions about your business through the lens of this financial plan and also through the organization chart. Just doing year end, even if you don't want to then backtrack it and see what needs to happen every quarter, just doing year end is a useful exercise. So do 2019 and then do another column for 2020. And just get a sense for what do sales need to be at these various times in order for you to be able to hire the infrastructure and implement the organization chart fully. There's a great website called salaries.com. If you're ever thinking about, well, what would be a good salary in my area for this type of position, and you can use that to kind of define what the position would be or what the salary would be for that position. The whole exercise, this whole financial plan exercise, in the end, is to achieve the vision of the owner up here, the entrepreneur. And you remember we talked about this being the shareholder, the person who's concerned about the value of the business. If the business is profitable, it's going to help everyone in the entire organization. If the business can afford to hire people to do the work and not overwhelm the existing people, that's to the benefit of the entire business. So anything and everything the board of directors, the owner decides to do up here is benefiting the entire company. But the mindset is different because I'm looking at the bottom line right here. What's the net profit? If you have a negative number here or your net profit is less than 5%, well, I could probably take my money and get 5% on it somewhere in the financial world. Some bank's going to give me a CD at 5% or investing it in some other way. And that will have way more headaches than what it takes to run a small business. So this net profit number is the value of your business in the end. I mean, you could take your balance sheet and sell off all your equipment and your customer list, and that means something, but the profitability is everything. So use this exercise to come up with what is a good net profit. There's also a website called netprofit.com, I think. I don't know. If anyone's interested, you can email me. But on that website, it shows you what a good net profit for different industry businesses is. Some people don't even know what a good net profit is. So you should know what that number is and then decide how can you attain it. So next week, we're going to be talking about process documentation. We're going to go right here to the process tools and start discussing how to document a good process, which really is the heart of making your business profitable. It really is, because if you think about everything I've said about the organization chart, generating leads, converting those leads at a certain rate, having a plan for hiring people here and moving them up here, having effective bookkeeping. Every single thing that I've said today can be backtracked to a process. Do the processes exist for internet marketing? Do the processes exist for how to sell, how to set appointments, how to have good customer service, customer complaints, customer appreciation? Are there processes for bookkeeping? Are there processes for apprentice technician, leading up to lead, leading up to senior? So all of the results that you want to get for your financial plan because of your organization chart boils down to the creation of the processes to achieve those results. So next week, we are going to talk about that. Let me just go back here for a second before I let you go. If you have employees who you want to be assisting you in documenting their processes, so creating work plans like this one, doing checklist scripts, documenting the process, have them attend the next 2 sessions, so the next 2 weeks, because that's what I'm going to focus on here, how to use the process tools, first of all, technically, but more importantly, how to really build and document a process well, how to make a fantastic work plan that really can be used for training. Why do you use checklists? How to build a good script and the rest of them. So next week, we're going to talk about just work plans and checklists. And then the following week, we're going to finish up with the rest of the process tools.